Hello book nerds, thank you for joining my channel, The Book Nerd. And today I'm just trying to figure out where to start. So first I want to start off by saying I'm praying for all of those that are grieving in Chadwick Boseman's family. I'm praying for the Marvel Universe family, the fans, all of us fans who are grieving his death. And so we have definitely lost an extraordinary actor and an amazing person from what I understand. Secondly, I would like to say that I'm praying for those affected by the recent Hurricane Laura. So praying for all of those that have lost homes and or loved ones, that things will be restored and that things will get better for them. And then last but not least, my prayer is for Jacob Blake and praying for his healing, praying for his family, praying for all, especially his children, praying for all that are being traumatized by constantly seeing the killing of unarmed black men by the police and by others. And we have to do better. So we have to do better in terms of racial injustice, racism in general, social injustice, racial disparity, and violence against black people by the police and by others. We have to do better in that, and we all need to do our part. In addition, just me personally, one thing that I do, and I encourage all of you to do, if you are not registered to vote, please vote, or please register, and then please vote. And this isn't just about the President of the United States, and I'm not telling you what or who to vote for, but I'm telling you that it's about the Supreme Court when we vote. You want judges that can make decisions in these types of cases. You need to vote locally and statewide so that laws can be passed in your state and in your cities, and that can help in these areas. So I encourage you to vote. Again, not telling you who to vote for, what to vote for. So that kind of leads into another thing that we can do in this area of bridging the gap in races and in racism, and that is to support black authors and support black books. And that helps us to be aware of others, to have empathy for others, and to learn things that we can do, and just learn our history and our current climate. So that can be of a help too. And since we love books, I'm always encouraging books. And this is a great segue into what we're actually here to talk about today. And that is, this is our first book club discussion, and it's perfect because today we're talking about the author Brit Bennett, who wrote this book, The Vanishing Half. So Brit Bennett is an African American or black author, and this book is about predominantly black people. So I'm glad that this particular book club discussion just happens to fall on today, when we need more awareness, just continual awareness, and we get to celebrate this black woman's work. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. So I have a lot of notes, and this book was amazing. I'll just start off saying that I think that I encourage people to read it, to go out and purchase it, get it from your library, whatever means that you read books, do so, because it is a great work. And I want to tell you how this book club discussion is going to work. So obviously it's filmed, but what I'm going to do is review the book. I'm going to talk about what I thought about the book and just bring up some pertinent points. And then in addition to that, I will ask some questions. So I will ask questions for you to think about and that you can answer in the comments below. I also will post those questions in the description box so that you can look at them, after you're done watching this. I also encourage you to ask questions, pose questions, so that all of us can answer those questions and pose your thoughts about the book. I want to hear how you liked it, what you didn't like, all of that good stuff. So I want us to have some invigorating conversation about this book. I think there's enough in it for us to have some really good conversation. So, The Vanishing Half. This book is fiction or historical fiction. Again, it's written by Brit Bennett, and from what I understand, this is Brit Bennett's second work. And it takes place in, part of it takes place, it starts in Louisiana, in a small town in Louisiana. And it's about twins, Desiree and Stella. So Desiree and Stella are twins that grow up in this small town. And the small town was built or built or created by their great-great-great-grandfather, and I hope I have that right. His dream was to make a town of all light-skinned people. So already and this is straight off the bat, you read about this in this book. So they're all light-skinned people, and his goal was every generation just get lighter and lighter. So he would have been proud had he saw Stella and Desiree, because they were so light, or are so light, that they could pass for white. So you have these twins. Desiree is kind of your free child. You know, she wants to travel. She wants to get out of this small town. It's called Mallard. And Stella is the studious one, maybe the more obedient one, if you will, and more quiet and reserved. So you have these twins that are, I believe they're identical, but they have these different personalities. They wanted to leave just to get away. They wanted to go to something bigger. They lost their dad when they were small. They actually saw him get dragged out of the house by white people that were racist. They saw him get beat. He didn't die, but he did end up in the hospital, and because they didn't kill him, they came to the hospital and shot him there. So they lost their dad at a young age. They were traumatized. They were raised in by their mother, so she's now a single mother who's taken on a lot of jobs to try to support them. When they turn 16 years old, they are told by their mom they have to leave school. They need to quit school so that she can get help from them so that they can work. So she got them jobs at some rich white people's home, and they had to do things like laundry and clean and all of that kind of thing, and that was kind of maybe the last straw. Stella, the studious one, she had dreams of going to Spelman, a historical black college, and she wanted to become a teacher. And Desiree just wanted to get out of there. She always felt like there was something bigger. She wasn't really into all of this colorism stuff they had going on. She just never felt it. So they wanted to leave, and they made a plan, and they left. So they just kind of disappeared from this small town. So they end up in New Orleans. This is where they wanted to go. They live like maybe in somebody's, I don't remember if they live in the basement at first or where they live. They're doing, jobs, I think doing some type of laundry job or something like that. And as they grow older, all of a sudden Stella decides she wants to leave. She leaves Desiree. No explanation whatsoever. So we have Desiree, and that's what we're going to focus on right now, who is heartbroken. Her twin has left her, and she doesn't know why. She doesn't even know where Stella is. So then we follow Desiree. So, it kind of starts in 1968. Then we move up to like 1978. And then eventually we end up in the 80s. But so we have Desiree. She's now by herself. So she decides to move. And she ends up meeting a man named Sam. He is dark as dark can get. So she wanted to go opposite of what her family expected of her. She marries this dark-skinned man named Sam. He has great qualities until we see his true self. He starts to abuse Desiree. He abuses her. They have a little girl. They have a daughter. She turns out just as dark as him and doesn't even look like Desiree. Desiree flees from where she lives with the abusive husband and goes back to her hometown with her little girl who's about 7, and her name is Jude. And they go back to the hometown, and everybody's talking because they're wondering, this is what they said, who is this black child that she has that doesn't even look like her? So anyway, the grandmother, surprised, she tells her, I told you not to marry that dark-skinned man because they do this and that. So a lot of ugly colorism going on. So anyway, Desiree ends up staying there. She ends up working in a diner. She raises her daughter in this small town. And so that's where we'll kind of leave off with Desiree. And she's there for the remainder almost the remainder of the book. So then we'll go to Jude. This is Desiree's daughter. So she raises her in this small town of Mallard, where they love light skin and think dark skin is bad. So of course she's getting teased. She's left out. She's not invited to parties and all of that. So she stays to herself. She reads a lot, and she can run track. So she's on the track team. They really don't even pay attention to her, but she gets, she wins the meets and everything, and she ends up getting a scholarship. When she's gets old enough and she graduates, she goes to UCLA on scholarship. So she moves to Los Angeles. So then we get into the story of Jude, and Jude, it gets really complicated, but Jude, this is new to her. She's in a big city, the beautiful city of Los Angeles. I love Southern California, but she moves there, and she meets a man, or so she meets a man. His name is Reese, and they develop a friendship, and she hangs out with him and his friend. They do drag on like 2 times a month. So she has this a different type of crowd that she's hanging around, that she doesn't even, she's never hung around people that engage in this type of activity before. She finds out Reese, in fact, is or was a girl and is actually transgender, and Reese does not care. So we follow Reese in that, Reese in college, Reese in her friendships, Jude in her friendships, Jude in college, and pretty soon Jude and Reese become a couple. So we have that. First, Jude gets a job with a catering company. So it is one of her friend's brother that works in this job. And so Jude gets this job, and she's at an event, this swanky retirement party, and she ends up talking to one of the people that is there, this blonde girl with blue eyes. And the girl is talking about her mom and how she's late. Then pretty soon the mom walks in, and Jude sees that the mom looks just like her mom. Okay, so Jude spills wine everywhere, ends up getting fired, does not get any more information from the girl she was talking to, or any information about that woman, but she believes she has seen her Aunt Stella, who she knows her mom has been wondering where she's at and depressed and, wondering where her sister is. So now we'll move to Stella. Stella's the other twin. So we've talked about Desiree. Now Stella, she has moved to Los Angeles, and she married a rich white man. He has blonde hair. He has blue eyes. He's successful. They live in Brentwood, and some of you probably have heard of Brentwood in Los Angeles. So, and she's living a life as if she is a white woman. She left her sister and didn't tell her, what was happening, because she didn't want the feedback of her living this life. She thought that living white would make her free, and it was easy for her to live this way. So she became a housewife. She has a little girl. Her name is Kennedy. Kennedy has blue eyes, blonde hair. Okay, so we see all of this happening. Stella is living her life so white, if you will, that even when the first black family moves in their neighborhood, she opposes it. She is terrified of a black family moving in, because her whole thing is she's scared she's going to get recognized, that somebody's found out, that a black person is going to be able to see, I see some black in her. So, but everybody else in the neighborhood just thinks she's just like them. They're better than this black family. She ends up developing, though, a friendship with the black woman that lived across the street, and her name was Loretta. Excuse me, let me look really quick. Her name was Loretta, I think, Walker. So Loretta Walker, and if I get that wrong, forgive me. So she actually develops a friendship with this woman. She lets the kids play together, her daughter and their daughter. And but then eventually the neighbors find out, so she shuts all that down. Well, she shuts them down, but then she had told her daughter that the black people are the N-word. So her little girl, about 7 years old, one day tells the other little girl, "You are the N-word." And so the black mother, Loretta, she shut it down. She didn't want anything else to do with her. Very, understandable, and that's an understatement. So that is Stella. So we have Stella. She's a housewife. living a lie, but she's living easy. She's living well in her, in her mind. So then we have Kennedy. Kennedy is the little girl that I told you about that Stella had, the little girl that was playing with the other little black girl across the street. And Kennedy is her daughter. And so we follow Kennedy's life, and she wants to be an actress. She's kind of a free spirit. She, doesn't like to be tied down. And her family, Stella and the father, they want her to go to college and, get a degree. And Stella wants her to be like she was, very studious. And she's not like that. She ends up in a play. And because she's an actress, and she ends up in a play. And Jude is actually going to the supporting her friend that's in that play, one of the people that does the drag. And they end up meeting again. So now they're meeting after, it's been some years since that whole incident where she spilled the wine because she saw her aunt walk in at that retirement party. And so they develop a friendship, or I guess you would call it a friendship. But Jude is after her because she wants to know more about Kennedy, because she believes Kennedy is her cousin, and she wants to find her aunt. Fast forward, the aunt ends up coming to one of the plays. Jude confronts the aunt. The aunt first tries to deny it. Jude says some things that nobody would know about her childhood. The aunt runs. She doesn't want anything to do with that. She doesn't want to be found out. Kennedy later on says something rude to Jude. And so Jude gut punches her by saying, "You're not white, you're black, and your mama's black." Basically, she didn't say it like that, but that's what she said. Kennedy thinks she's crazy, but in the back of her mind, she believes that her mom has been keeping something from her because her mom never talks about her past. And she just kind of thinks it's true. She remembers her mom saying she's from Louisiana, a small town. So we have this circle of people meeting. And what ends up happening is Stella goes back to the small town. She goes back home where her Desiree is, and she tells her, the kids know, but I'm trying to live my life. It's easier, it's free. They kind of reconcile, I guess. She talks to her mom, even though at that point her mom has Alzheimer's, and Stella leaves after that and goes back to her life of privilege, if you will. So the book is just so interesting. The relationships are complicated, to say the least. So you have Stella, who is a lot like Jude in a way. So Stella is a lot like her niece. They're both studious. They have a plan. Excuse me, because Jude wants to become a doctor. And then Kennedy is a lot like Desiree. But Kennedy and Stella, never go back to, really developing a relationship with Desiree. However, Kennedy and Jude do stay in touch. Jude ends up again going into medical school. She stays with Reese, and Kennedy doesn't stay in relationships. She just doesn't stick with them, and she ends up, becoming a soap opera star, and then later on she gets into real estate. We see that Desiree, she stays with a childhood friend or boyfriend that she had from childhood. They're together, but he is a hunter of people. In fact, he was trying to hunt her down at first for her husband so that he could find her. But when he realized it was Desiree, he was not going to tell the husband where she was at, and especially when he found out the husband was a jerk and an abusive man. So she has this boyfriend. He's like an eternal boyfriend that comes and goes when he's not doing hunting for people, because he helped like a bail bondsman. Then he comes and stays with her and her mother in Louisiana. So again, I can't do the book justice. It was so well written. I don't even know how she kept up with all these dates and ages. I just kept going back and forth flipping. So they're this age now, this is happening now, because it was just so intricate. It was so well woven how they met, how the two children, how they collided, how they met. and then ended up kind of outing Stella and kind of bringing them all back together. Other things about the book that I appreciated were the fact that she gave all kinds of points of views. So, and it wasn't just the main characters. So we saw Desiree, her thoughts, her journey. We saw Stella, her thoughts, her journey. We saw Kennedy, her thoughts, her journey, Jude. We also learned about Reese. We also learned about Early, who is Desiree's eternal, I call him, boyfriend that she has. So we find out their kind of their history. We find out what makes them the way that they are. We kind of see why it makes sense that all of these people end up getting together. Also, another great thing about the book is the topic. Colorism is real, and I know people that have, or I know of people very well that have lived their life out as another color. And also I know people that have been discriminated against within their own race based on their shade, their skin tone. I also love the fact that this book did go across generations and decades, I should say. I love that part of the book. So I love that history. I love reading things about Black culture in the South in the 50s, 60s. And then I especially like seeing it kind of move up. I like seeing somebody from a town that was, or people that are from a really small town and moving to the big city and kind of experiencing that whole different world. It was just a very well written book. I think that, again, the colorism topic is important. It touches on racism. We see that even with Stella herself, but also the people that live in her neighborhood. It touches on family and the complicated dynamics of a family, especially when colorism is involved. It talks about all types of topics that I believe are even pertinent today. You know, people are still experiencing these types of things, different types of discrimination. They're still having problems in their families based on discrimination, and just people trying to make it in a world that does not seem like it is made for them. So then they try to adapt or adjust so that they can fit into that world. So now what I'm going to do is ask the questions, and again, I'm going to put them in the description box so that you can look at them again after I ask them. So one of the questions I would like to ask are, what are your overall thoughts about the book? I've seen some people, most of the reviews are just amazing. If I were to give it stars, I would probably give it a 4. So a 4 is really good for me, and maybe even a 4.5. Who was your favorite character? Who was your least favorite character? How did you feel about Desiree raising her daughter in the hometown that she knew she would be tormented in? Do you feel that Stella was justified in living her life as a white woman? How did you feel about Desiree and Early's relationship? So, how did you feel about that? How did you feel about Jude and Reese's relationship? How did you feel about Stella and Blake's relationship? So Blake is, the one that was passing for White's husband. And why do you think Stella befriended Loretta Walker when she didn't befriend the people that she had been living in that neighborhood with for years? So why did she take that chance? Why? And she was almost obsessed with Loretta Walker. So why did she befriend her? What was your favorite part of the book? I think for me to answer some of these questions, my favorite part of the book was when Jude confronted Stella at the outside of that play. I thought my heart was like beating. I'm like, oh, she's about to tell it. But I loved how she revealed things so that Stella could not ignore that that she was in fact her niece. And so that was one of my favorite parts. If I didn't like anything about the book, I would say some of it got convoluted. I think that they focused so much on Jude and Desiree that then I felt like sometimes a little bit about Kennedy and Stella were not as flushed out, even though they did, I think, Brit Bennett did a good job on all of it. I think that they just didn't get the equal amount of time, if that makes sense. I think Jude's part was a little long, you know, showing how, you know, her in college and all of that. And then some parts, but then again, they did talk about everybody. They did give everybody's background. We did see how they thought, you know, what they were experiencing. So I really can't complain about that. Really, I can't complain, period. But, and then another thing that was just a little hard for me, and this is something you'll probably hear me say, anytime somebody's writing and then they go back, the person starts thinking about the past and then they come back to the present, that sometimes confuses me. So I'm like, wait, are we talking about now or then? And I'm not talking about the different parts of the book where they break it down what year it is, but just when the person is, you know, talking or thinking and then all of a sudden they go back into this history, then they're back. That got kind of confusing to me. So that's just my thoughts overall. Again, this book is great. It's a recommended read for me. I'm looking forward to reading The Mothers by Brit Bennett. I suggest everybody get a copy of this book, or again, check it out. You know, put it on your audio book or whatever and read it, because it's good. It keeps you, for the most part, it really keeps you engaged. And so that's it for the questions and my discussion and my thoughts on the book. Please, again, let me hear from you. I want some dialogue going on this book. I don't care if it opposes what I say or if it agrees or somewhere in the middle. And yeah, so, and also we need to start thinking about another book to read together. And I think we're going to do this, if we're going to keep doing it, every other month. So this would be for the month of October. And I like to read scary books kind of in October, but we can talk about that. So let me know another book that you all would like to read and we can read together and discuss. Finally, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. Tell other people about it. And thank you again for watching. Be book nerdy and be blessed. Thanks.